mistakes that you absolutely want to avoid making when you are having a difficult conversation? There are a lot of mistakes that leaders make. And in this video, I'm going to share with you personally a situation that happened with me as a leader that in basically changed my life. It changed my life in terms of how I view difficult conversations, how I handle difficult conversations, and I hope that you learn from the mistakes that I made from one of the bigger difficult conversations that I've actually had that will help you be able to have these situations when they come up with ease. If this sounds like a topic that you've ever struggled with, having a hard conversation with your business associates, your team, or etc., then you absolutely want to watch this video until the end because you're going to learn some really fantastic insights today. Now, if you're new to me, welcome. If you are one of my amazing subscribers, welcome back, friend. This channel heavily focuses on advanced communication skills and strategies to help you be able to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. If you happen to be in my direct target audience that I provide executive coaching and consultation services to that are women in leadership, you're welcome to reach out to me for an executive strategy session at exciteexcellence.org, where we will help you to develop a really solid game plan that will help you be able to navigate some of these more challenging situations that you face as a woman in leadership. Now, if you happen to be outside of my audience and you are a man in leadership or someone that is thinking about leadership and you're just not quite sure if you want to go into it just yet, I guarantee you this is the best channel here on YouTube for this topic. And I also guarantee you that you will learn something that will help you be able to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. Now, as I mentioned, I've had many difficult conversations. I would say countless at this point. But there's always one, right? There's always one difficult conversation that will forever stand out in your mind. And I'm going to share with you one of my difficult conversations with as much information as I can share. Some of it I can't share, but I'm gonna share as much as I can. And I want to replay this back with you so that you understand the critical mistakes that I made so that when you have a difficult conversation in the future, that you don't make the mistakes that I made. Now, for any of us that are in a leadership role, there's always hard conversations, difficult conversations that we have to have. And I want to let you all know that difficult conversations do not have to be as difficult if we try to work together to make it happen. So I want to say hello to, let me say, Levisi 77. I hope I said your name correctly, friend. If I did not, I'm sorry about that. Hello to those of you who are joining the live today. Let me know what questions you have as it relates to difficult conversations. What mistakes do you want to learn how to avoid today? If you want to avoid these mistakes, you absolutely want to watch this video until the end. I want to say hello to the real Elvis K. Hello, hope you're doing well today. The real Elvis K says, what is going on? We are talking about mistakes you want to avoid making when you're having difficult conversations as a leader. This channel specifically focuses heavily on advanced communication skills and strategies. If you want to learn how to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure, this is the best channel on YouTube for you to learn that information. We have Aaliyah N3H says hello, asking a question about, do I play Roblox? Sometimes with my daughter I do. King of Noobs 0828, hello, and King of Noobs says hello again, and I hope you're all doing well today. Let me know what questions you have specifically as it relates to having difficult conversations. Have you had a difficult conversation before? Let's talk about it. Now, as I mentioned, my conversation specifically was with a peer, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier today, and I promised my audience I was going to go more into detail on that this afternoon. Now, what happened specifically is I had a situation where I had to have a difficult conversation with a peer, and this was many years ago, and this person that I had a conversation with was doing something incorrectly that was very much, I would say, catastrophic to someone else. And I wanted to talk to them about it, see what's going on, and make a plan. Well, what I did, I'm going to tell you what I did, and then I'm going to explain to you why I made a mistake, what the mistakes I made. First, I decided, I was actually relatively new to my role, And I decided that I wanted to have a conversation with this person at the end of the day. And I decided, let this person completely finish what they're doing. And then after that, I'm going to have a conversation with them at the end of the day, after the end of the work day. I'm just going to tell them what the problem was, and they're going to hear me, and we're going to make a change, and I'm going to have to do some type of disciplinary action probably. And then from there, we are going to be done with the conversation. That's what I thought. Now, I'll tell you that the conversation actually went into a very different, very contentious direction very, very fast. And I did not know it was going to go in that direction. So there's a couple of things I want to mention to you all in terms of what I did that I just shared with you that were mistakes. And I want you to avoid making these mistakes as a leader. Please avoid these mistakes. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. So for those of you joining, welcome, welcome. We are talking about a very serious topic today. The mistakes that you want to avoid making when you are having a difficult conversation with someone, whether you are a woman in leadership or a man in leadership. There's a couple things that you absolutely want to be able to avoid doing when you're having a difficult conversation. If you have any questions specifically, I'm here to support you any way that I can. If we're talking about things that may not necessarily be relative to this topic, I will have to address those at another time, because this channel is a very serious channel for really serious leaders, and hopefully that's you. What are the mistakes that I made in this situation? First, one mistake that I made, and I'm going to highlight as many mistakes as I can. One of the mistakes that I made was that I had the conversation at the end of the day. And I want to say hello to Play Explicator, blah, blah, blah. Well, Play Explicator, then obviously this is not the channel for you. So you're welcome to go to another channel where you control it there. As I mentioned, I had the conversation at the end of the day. When you're having a difficult conversation with someone, don't have it at the end of the day. And let me explain to you why. If you have a conversation at the end of the day, this person, this individual, including yourself, is probably already very, 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 very tired. They're probably already exhausted from the day itself. They're probably really frustrated. Maybe they're ready to go home. And your conversation that you're going to have with them at the end of the day is just making their day even longer. Therefore, do not have a conversation, a difficult conversation that you know is going to be difficult at the end of the day. Number one. The second mistake that I made is that I did not know this person that well. Now, you may be wondering, well, if I have to have a difficult conversation with a team member or etc., sometimes you may not know them well if you're just starting in a role. And that is true. This is something that happened to me, and this is why I say this was a mistake. When you're having a difficult conversation, or you anticipate a difficult conversation is going to be actually happening, then this is something that will actually cause you problems in the future. You have to get a sense of who it is specifically that you are wanting to communicate with, and know a little bit about this person. Is this individual very friendly? Is this individual very controversial? Are they a bit contentious? Or maybe they're just always excited? Taking a few moments to get to know that person will help you to determine how you want to guide the conversation, the difficult conversation, when it happens. Now, in my case, I shared with you, I was new in the role, and I did not know exactly who this person was. I knew them very briefly, but I didn't have a ton of detail in terms of how they operated. I knew that people had concerns with this person, but I just didn't know a lot of details. So make sure you know who it is you're speaking with, because that will help you tremendously in terms of being able to start avoiding the mistakes that I made in my conversation. I want to say hello to Cat 23rd. Hello, Cat. Cat says, hey, Doc, and sorry I'm late. No problem, Cat. Glad that you're here today, friend. Let me know what questions you all have about difficult conversations. I am going through the scenario that I went through, and I'm sharing with you why and what mistakes I made specifically as it relates to having difficult conversations. For those of you just joining, the first thing I mentioned to you, the first mistake I made in the scenario I mentioned earlier, was that I had the conversation at the end of the day. Don't have difficult conversations at the end of the day. I explained why a few moments ago. Second is, Know the person you are having this difficult conversation with. The mistake I made is I didn't know this person. I didn't know them well enough to have a difficult conversation. In retrospect, what I would have done was to spend a little bit of time getting to know this person, asking people about this person, and getting a sense as to where this conversation could go. Sometimes we make mistakes as leaders because there's some conversations we just have to have that are going to be hard, and we just jump into those conversations like really quickly. But I encourage you, when you are having a difficult conversation, you need to just slow down a bit and pause and take a few moments, as I talk about a lot on this channel, to prepare. That is a mistake I made. I knew what I was going to talk to the person about because it was an issue, but I did not prepare in advance like I do now. The next mistake that I made in a difficult conversation, and these are mistakes that I want you all to not make, is that I completely did not prepare for this conversation to go in a negative or more contentious direction. For me, I thought that I was going to talk to the person, tell them this is what you did incorrectly, this is what you did wrong. They were going to say, okay, sorry about that, sign the form, and then go about their way. That was a mistake. I did not plan for the conversation to go in a different direction. Can of Beans, hello, welcome, welcome. Hope you're doing well today. Now, what happens when you don't plan for the worst case scenario? You're caught off guard. And in this situation, the scenario I mentioned to you, I was caught off guard. I was completely caught off guard in the conversation because it went in a very negative direction so fast that I didn't know what to do. And that is why I would say make sure you plan ahead. When you plan ahead, take a moment to think about exactly who it is you're speaking with and what happens if this person does not receive this information well. They may not receive it well. And if they do not, then what exactly is it that you are going to do to turn the situation around? Those are the top 3 mistakes that I made during the conversation, but I'm going to actually go into more depth in terms of other mistakes that I made in the conversation that will help you the next time you have a difficult conversation coming up. Cat 23 says boundary and expectation setting. Key challenge, being firm without damaging relationships. Absolutely. So Kat, that's a really good point. I appreciate you bringing that up. When you are in those type of difficult conversations, it is very important for you to be firm, but have a conversation. And I know you've heard me talk about this a lot. I really believe that most difficult conversations can turn into a conversation if you are trained properly to know how to do it. If you want some support with that, you happen to be in my target audience, you're welcome to reach out to me on any platform, Instagram, LinkedIn, and here on YouTube, of course. All right, we have Canna Bean says, I'm sorry that I'm one of your only viewers. Can you tell me what's going on, please? Sure. So Canna Beans, welcome. Glad that you're here. This is the first time I believe you've been on my channel, so welcome, welcome. This is the best channel here on YouTube if you want to learn how to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. This particular live video, what happens a lot of times on the lives, and this is just an insight just for everyone to know before I answer the question, is that you may see it says 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, or 3 individuals watching, but a lot of times there's more people watching, you just don't see it. And especially when it comes to the replays, a lot of people watch it. So let me tell you what we're talking about. We are talking about mistakes to avoid when you are having difficult conversations with someone as a leader. Earlier in the live, I gave a scenario that happened to me personally where I had a difficult conversation as a senior executive, and that conversation went in a very bad direction. And I'm sharing with you the mistakes that I made in hopes that you do not make those mistakes when you have a difficult conversation. The next time when you're in that situation, instead of being kind of afraid, which most people are when they hear the word, oh, I gotta have a hard conversation, there's something in their body that just tenses up because they don't want to do it. This is the reason why I want you to learn from my mistakes so you know what not to do. That is what we're talking about, Can of Beans. And if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, Raj Kumar, hello, friend. How you doing today? Welcome, welcome. Good to see you again. Raj Kumar says, watching from Europe. Well, fantastic. What part of Europe are you in right now? Your streams are usually super late for us. like 2 and 3 a.m. I know, yeah, in Europe it is probably earlier that it is, yeah, you're probably about right. I'm so sorry it's early. So Raj Kumar says, any chance of an earlier stream occasionally, would love to catch you live. Okay, so let's see. You know what, Raj Kumar, just because you asked me that, let me take a screenshot. Okay, hold on just one moment. Let me do that. And what I'll do, because it depends on where you are in Europe, and I know it's really early morning Europe time right now. Sometimes in the day, early morning here. Oh, you're in Sweden. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Raj Kumar. Thank you for letting me know that. What I'll do is I'll plan on doing a live a little earlier. I have them in the mornings and in the evenings. So let's see how I want to do that for you. I'll do a post, but typically Raj Kumar around about 8 o'clock, 8:30, 8:40 in the morning Eastern Standard Time here in the US, I go live. I'm assuming that probably is going to be later your time, so probably not in the morning, but more probably in the evening. I'm just speculating. I'm going to look into it and see what I can do to make that work for you. You're always welcome to reach out to me on Instagram, or if you leave me a message here on LinkedIn, either one of those platforms, just say hello, connect with me there, and I can give you a heads up when I'm doing maybe a different time of a live. So I'll keep that in mind, and I'll take a look at the Sweden time to see exactly what time, what the time difference is specifically. But I appreciate you being here, friend. Cat 2030 says, microaggression response, addressing subtle exclusions, coded language, or pattern-based slights. Very good insights, and those are definitely some areas that you want to pay attention to when you are having a difficult conversation. Kat is a regular here on the channel, and we talk about those situations all the time. You have to be very, very, very observant, and I'm going to go into one of my mistakes I made as well in just a moment. We have, let's see, Haya Noor, 5908. Hello, welcome, welcome. Let's see, what are you asking? Let's see. Okay, so Haya Noor, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, says, can you help me phrase something to stop being friends with someone, but I don't want to hurt their feelings? Really, it's okay if you don't. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you're at the best channel to figure that out. So yes, absolutely, I will help you with that. Okay, one of the things I'll tell you just really quickly, and then we'll go back into a couple mistakes that I want you all to avoid making in difficult conversations. If you have someone, you're not trying to hurt their friends, you're not trying to hurt their feelings, but you don't want to be their friend, there's a couple ways, Haya Noor, that you can go about doing this. One way is to do it subtly and start to create distance. You may want to not be in front of that person or around that person as often as you used to be. That is one way you can start to create distance and establish that there perhaps is a boundary that you're trying to set with this person. Now, if you want to directly have that conversation, which it sounds like you want to phrase something specifically for this individual, I will help you with that. One of the things that you can say when you're talking to someone is you want to be honest and talk about what the issue is and what are some things you're trying to do. I'm going to just mention a random scenario. If you have more insight you want to share with me, Haya Noor, you're welcome to do that. But this is just a random scenario I'm just thinking of off the top of my head, okay? If you are in a situation, let's see, if you have someone that maybe they're a bit more negative, maybe they're just really negative, you don't want to interact with them as much, you can say the following: I really appreciate the support that you've provided with me over the years. There's a couple of things that I'm working on personally that I really have to start developing, and I'm not going to be able to spend as much time as we have done in the past. I really appreciate everything you've done for me, and hopefully we'll connect at some point in the future. That's a polite way to tell someone, I don't want to interact with you that much. As I mentioned, that's just something off the top of my head. If you give me some more context, I'll see what I can do to help you. Cat 2030 says, boundary violations in digital space, difficulty always on culture makes pushback feel like personal failure. That's a really good point. And that's something that a lot of people do struggle with, especially now being in the digital world. We do have to feel like there is this always on type of mentality, like we have to be on, we have to be on. And as you mentioned, being in that type of situation can make things really, really hard. Cat 23 says, I think it's better to tell the person that you would like to end the friendship or you don't want to be friends with them because it is easy and they know where they stand when it comes to both of you. That's true. It's just there's a way you say it to where you're not hurting someone's feelings. And sometimes when you have a conversation with someone, you say, hey, I don't want to be your friend anymore. They're going to say, well, why? And it will just kind of mess with them mentally because they don't understand why. But thank you for the heart emojis. But if you say it in a way where you're saying basically, this is something that I'm working on, this is something that I am doing that is going to help me move forward, and I'm not going to be able to spend time with you, you're putting it off on yourself as this is something that you are trying to work on that they're not going to be able to be a part of. I've done that many times, and you just have to be really mindful about how you say it. That's the key. Appreciate the person. This is a difficult conversation, Hayanur, and I appreciate you bringing it up. Appreciate the person, because if this was a friend, thank you for the heart emojis. If this was a friend, then you were in a good standing with this friend at some point in time. You don't want to say, I don't like you, I don't want to be your friend anymore. Still acknowledge the good times that they had with you. Acknowledge their support, acknowledge them helping you, and then go into your conversation. Okay, Haya Noor says, okay, thank you. And by the way, did you did say my name right? Oh, great, thank you. And you got the context right. Got the context kind of right with that situation. Thank you to Kat as well. Well, thank you. We appreciate that and appreciate you being here, friend. Alrighty. Now, as I mentioned, we've had some really great discussions so far, and I appreciate everyone, Kat, Raj Kumar, and Hayanur, for giving some really good context. And Hayanur, thank you for mentioning your scenario specifically, because that is a difficult conversation. Now, another mistake that I made, as I mentioned earlier, there's a scenario I discussed. You're definitely welcome to watch the live to catch the beginning of the scenario so you know exactly what happened. Was that and I'll recap really quickly. I had the conversation late in the afternoon at the end of the day. I didn't know the person I was speaking to in detail. And then the next mistake that I made was that I really, really, really didn't plan for the conversation to go in the wrong direction. I should have planned a little bit better for that. Another mistake that I made was where I had the conversation. I had the conversation in the most ridiculous place. It was in a office setting with the door closed. I had a witness with me, which was good. Always have somebody with you. So I didn't make that mistake, but I don't want you to make that. Always have somebody with you, but I was literally in a closed door where anything could have happened. And I felt that could have happened, and I felt actually physically threatened in this conversation, which is why you may not want to have meetings in closed door settings. You may need to have the door ajar briefly, if depending on the context. If you let people know you're having a hard conversation of people you trust and that you're communicating with, then at least somebody knows what's going on. And that's going to go into my next mistake that I made. But let me see what's going on in the chat. Cat 23 says, I got you at Hayanur. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And a 100. All right. Cat 23 says, whistleblowing adjacent. Seeing something unethical but not clearly illegal, gray area concerns. This is a really great topic, and I appreciate you bringing this up, because a lot of times you have to make the determination in terms of how you want to handle this situation. I want to say hello to On Stage 8571. Hello, welcome back, friend. How you doing today? But a lot of times what will happen in those situations is when it is gray, you have to determine, are you going to say something or are you not going to say something? And you have to live with that decision in terms of what you decide to do. Are you going to say something or not? And sometimes it may be difficult for you to discern what to do. So I would always tell my clients when they have situations like that, because a lot of my clients deal with situations like that are women in leadership, make the decision that will allow you to sleep at night. And if it's a decision where you're going to be replaying this in your mind, knowing that you should have said something you did not, then you obviously want to make the right decision and say the right thing. On stage says, good evening from Albania in Southern Europe. Absolutely. Yes. And I appreciate you being here. It's been a while since I've seen you, so I'm glad that you're back and saying hello. Welcome, friend. Another thing I wanted to mention to you, this is another mistake. I'm just sharing with you the multiple mistakes in this big conversation I had that I will remember forever. I really did not include human resources. Now, I was at a senior executive role at the time, and I can have conversations like that and not include human resources all the time. But in this particular situation, because it was someone that was a peer, it would have been wise for me to have a difficult conversation, but to at least let my human resources team know I was going to have a difficult conversation. If I would have let them know, the situation probably would have unfolded in a bit of a different way, but I did not do that. That was a mistake that I made. If you're working with an organization and you are the leader, you definitely need to let your human resources team know if you're having a very, very serious, difficult conversation coming up. Now, you don't have to do that for every conversation, but there's some conversations that could potentially be a bit more, I would say, notable than others, and you definitely want to make sure you let them know what's going on with that. Now, I want to know from you, what are some mistakes that you all have made when you have had a difficult conversation with someone? Let's talk about it. We have a lot of individuals and a lot of amazing leaders that watch the replays of these videos, and it would be amazing if we can work together as a group and come up with a very comprehensive list of mistakes for people to avoid making when they are having difficult conversations. I have a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I can share with you as many as I can, but having your insight and your perspective is always welcomed as well. Now, I mentioned to you the mistakes I made. I'm going to keep going as I can think of the mistakes I made off the top of my head. None of these are rehearsed. I'm just sharing with you what mistakes that I made. Another mistake that I made was having the conversation in a room where I did not really know where the exits were. Now, you may be saying, well, what kind of conversation was that? Well, as I mentioned, the conversation went into a very, 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 very contentious direction very, 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 very quickly. And I had the door closed, which was a mistake. And the door was closed, and I was across the desk. The door, I did not have any other ways to get out besides going out this one door. And the person was across the desk from me, in addition to the witness I had. And when the conversation became very contentious, to be honest with you, I didn't know what to do. I had never been in a conversation like that in my life, for someone to just go from 0 to 1,000 in a matter of seconds. I've never seen that before. And what did I do? I didn't know how to get out. I did not know how to get out. I had no idea how to get out of this conversation. I didn't know how to get out the room, because basically the person was at the door and I was across. So if I tried to leave, the person's right there. And I did, at that particular moment in my life, feel threatened. I felt very, 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 very threatened. Now, I do want to mention to you another mistake that I made in this situation with this conversation is that I should have, and I did not do this, but I should have paid much, 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 much closer attention to some of the things that Kat 23rd mentioned earlier. When you're talking about microaggressions, subtle changes, I did not pay attention to those as quickly as I should have. I should have noticed that this person was showing me millions probably of cues that they were furious and they were mad. Thank you for the heart emojis. I knew they were upset. And I knew they would be upset. No one wants to be told they did something wrong, but this was pretty egregious wrong. I mean, this was bad. This was very, very bad. And I just didn't take time to pay attention to see where these changes took place. Now, ever since that conversation happened, I am always hyper focused on people's nonverbal cues, which is the reason, thank you for the smiley faces, which is the reason why I'm so passionate about this, and I talk about this on my channel every day, because look, I've been in those situations where things were very, very challenging, and these are the mistakes that I made, and I don't want you to make those mistakes. A lot of times, if you pay attention to someone's verbal and nonverbal cues, they will tell you what they are not wanting to say. And I could have probably picked up on these cues a bit earlier in the conversation if I had only paid more attention to them instead of paying attention to what I wanted to say at that particular time. I was heavily focused, as many leaders are, in terms of what do I need to say? What do I need to read off this paper about this issue that happened? And not paying attention to the person in front of me. That's why I really am very heavily focused on what are they saying that they're not saying, what is their facial expression showing, all those things. If you pay closer attention, people will tell you what they're thinking. And when you start to see that small amount of aggression, then in your mind, you know this conversation either needs to change direction or we need to get out. I did not do that. And this is a mistake that I made. I want to say hello to Beach Girl 6742. I will say, Beach Girl, I know you're asking a question, and I have to tell you that this channel is definitely a bit more of a advanced communication skills and strategies. We talk about more serious topics than asking me if I'm ticklish. If there's some content that you're really trying to learn and trying to elevate yourself as a leader, this is the best channel for you here. But if you're trying to ask questions like that, there's other channels on YouTube that maybe have a bit more silly and nonsense things that you want to watch. I'm not going to block you because I know you're probably just asking something silly, but I'm letting you know this is not the channel for that. Flip Bukowski, hello, welcome, welcome. Okay, Cat 23 says, question, what is the goal of any difficult conversation? Understanding, change, or relationship preservation? That's a really great question, Cat. Any difficult conversation should be understanding. There should be a level of understanding. I put that at the top because if you understand the person and where they're coming from, your relationship will still be preserved. I think you may have a very difficult time when you're having a difficult conversation preserving a relationship if you do not understand that person, you do not understand where they're coming from. A lot of times, leaders, Kat, will go into conversations quite the contrary. Instead of thinking about how can I understand maybe this person, the challenges that they're facing, what's going on with them, they go into difficult conversations, especially when it's related to performance, with the mindset of, I'm going to change you. And for those of you who do not know about change, change is hard. When I was in my Master's of Science in Public Health program, a long time ago now, one of the things they talk about in public health are the stages of change. The stages of change. There's this whole list of change stages that happen to someone. Whether someone is trying to change their mindset, when someone's trying to lose weight, they're trying to maybe perhaps stop some type of addiction, they're trying to change a behavior. You just can't say change. This is a problem. You did this wrong. There's a step process to that. You need to be at the pre-contemplation, the contemplation, and all of these phases. But a lot of times, Cat, leaders don't approach difficult conversations that way. They approach it as, you did something wrong and you need to change. You did something wrong, you need to change. You did something wrong, you need to change. Instead of saying that, you could say, I noticed this was an issue or something happened. Can you tell me a bit more about what took place? And then just listen. So I hope that gives you some insight in terms of the main goal of a difficult conversation based on your responses. It really should truly be heavily focused on understanding. Understand the person, where they're coming from, so that you can help them understand why there may be a better way to address this issue whenever it comes up. There's so many ways you can have a difficult conversation. Now, I'm going to think of a few more things, a few more mistakes that I made in this conversation. I shared with you so many so far, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, if I had to do this conversation over again, what would I do differently? Knowing my exits, changing the location, making sure it wasn't a closed door, conversations. Sometimes you have those conversations, but I do believe there's an opportunity for you to be very strategic about where you have those conversations, especially if you're dealing with a highly volatile person. I didn't know this person was going to go in that direction that quickly, and I didn't know that I was going to feel threatened. And that is another thing I'll share with you. A mistake that leaders make oftentimes in difficult conversations, and that I actually made myself in this one. I wasn't ready to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure. Now, I had already been at a senior level executive role, and this is why I share this with you, and this is why it's so important for anyone that's in leadership roles to understand. Just because you could be a C-suite, you could be a director, you could be a senior VP. Any of those are very high-level leadership roles, and you know how to communicate. But what happens when this conversation goes under pressure? I was not ready for it. I was not ready for it. I was not ready for it. And I share that with you in all transparency. Was not ready for it. And that was a mistake that I made. When the situation and conversation went south, I still communicated well. But that pressure mindset in terms of making those decisions really fast to determine what do I need to do, I simply did not do that. I did not do that. Cat 23rd says, another question, what makes the conversation easier in one setting, harder in another? I'm going to go into that in just a second. We have Sarah Shaw. Hello, welcome, welcome. Hope you're doing well. So let's go back to that question. So what makes the same conversation easier in one setting and harder in another? In terms of settings, a lot of it has to do with your mindset at that particular time. If you're talking about there's physical settings and then there's settings in your mind. But if you're talking more about physical settings, and Kat, let me know which one you're referring to specifically. But if it's a physical setting, sometimes the actual room you are in will prevent you from being able to mitigate a conversation when it comes up, when it's more of a challenging conversation. Now, if it's a situation where you may have the same difficult conversation, but your mind is not at the place where you have been able to learn how do you want to have a difficult conversation, what are those decision-making trees, as I call it, and etc. This is something that you have to think about. It just depends on where your head's at when you're having that difficult conversation. You may be really calm, and you may be really relaxed, and you may be able to have that difficult conversation. You may be having it at the end of the day and you're stressed out. This is something that it just really depends. So let me know if you're talking about physical or you're talking about actually mental. Let me know and I'll go more into detail on that. All right, we have Salu Ramana. I hope that I said it correctly. Hope you're doing well. We have Hidden Human TV. Hello, says, what's up, y'all? Hello, welcome, welcome. Hope you're doing well today. Welcome to the channel. Sarah's asking a question. Do you support Palestine or Israel? I support anyone that is not trying to kill someone. We have Hayanur says 5908 says, I have a question, but I don't know if you know how to answer it. The question is there anything to help anyone just be more confident in any type of conversation? Well, this is something that I will say yes, Hayanur. This is the channel just for you, friend. If you have not subscribed to this channel yet, you probably want to do that, because if you're asking questions about becoming more confident, this is my expertise. I've been doing this over 20 years and I will help you, friend. I will say before I go into your question, because it's actually a very, 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 very good question. Number one, I have a lot of videos here on this channel. I'm one of the few content creators here on YouTube. There's several of us, but I'm close to 1,000 videos on my channel that are specifically focusing in on high stakes communication, high pressure situations, confidence, and all those things you need to set yourself apart as a leader. Take a look at any videos I have about confidence. There's a 4-part mini series it's older. It's very, very old, but it is a good series on my YouTube channel that specifically talks about building confidence. You may want to take a look at that. But to answer your question, I do want to say this. You can and I mean this in all sincerity, I promise you, you can learn how to be confident in any type of conversation. Now, you may think that this is clickbait. You may think I'm lying. This is not true. No, you can. You can. You just have to be trained on how to do it, which is what I work with my clients on in a one-on-one setting. The ways that you can start to develop this skill, Hayanur, is one, you have to work on your confidence yourself. You have to start learning how to build your confidence up. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Kat also knows as well, in terms of coming up with your top 5 accomplishments, successes, aspects of your life you're really proud of. Start with your top 5, 3 to 5, and put those at the forefront of your mind all the time. You have to build your confidence. If you're not confident, then you will not be confident in any situation. Know that you are special and you're unique and you have your own gifts and unique abilities that no one else on planet Earth has. Number 1. Number 2, when you talk about being confident in every conversation, in any conversation, there's a couple things that go into that. And let me give you some insight. 1, you have to be that person that knows a lot about a little bit. Now, the reason I mention that is this is something I learned working with congressional leaders here in the United States when I was reviewing policies and bills and legislation. You have to learn about policy. And in order to learn about policies, you're not an expert on every single thing, but you're that person that knows a lot about many, many things. And take some time. Those aspects of your life or those conversations that you may not feel as confident about, or those topics, just for instance, Israel and Palestine just came up a moment ago, those hot topics and etc. that come up, be that person that takes a little bit of time to look on the news or learn a little bit about it just for a moment. You don't have to know the whole in-depth aspect of everything, but a lot of confidence comes from knowledge. That's the reason why people don't feel confident. You have to develop, it's important to develop some form of a knowledge base. That is the most important part of developing your confidence outside of developing it within yourself internally. If there's a topic that you're not comfortable with, there's a skill you're not comfortable with, if you don't like speaking in front of people, if you don't know what to do when you're speaking under pressure, if you freeze when you speak to other people, then you want to try to learn more about that. If there's a specific topic or conversation you just don't know how to navigate, learn a little bit about that. Challenge yourself and push yourself to learn more, to learn as much as you can. You can learn a little bit about a lot. That's what we do in the policy work. We learn a little bit about a lot. So this will help you start developing confidence in any conversation. So that when something comes up, like a discussion that you're not quite sure, you have somewhat of an insight on it, and that's good. Now, you may not know everything, and that's okay. You still know something. So talk about what you know. I talk about this a lot on the channel. Talk about what it is that you know, and when you're in those conversations, it will help you to be confident in any conversation. That's just a very brief overview, Hayanur. That is the 10,000 foot view of confidence. If you need some additional support, you're always welcome to reach out to me. But absolutely take a look at some of the videos on my channel and subscribe to the channel, because this is what we talk about. I will help you to become more confident for sure. Okay, let me go back to the chat. We have Hidden Human TV says, would you rather win an argument or control the outcome? I would rather control the outcome. What about you, Hidden Human TV? Let me know what you would prefer to do. Because you can win an argument, but are you going to control what happens? I would much rather control what happens than to win an argument. Cat 23rd says physical, temporal, or social setting. Okay. As it relates to that, in terms of your question, in a physical setting, it depends on what's going on. Sometimes if there are outside distractions that are happening in a physical setting specifically, then you may not be able to focus on having that very, very difficult conversation. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. You may have a hard time. There may be people like, this has happened to me a lot, a lot, especially in my roles, because I was very, very, very open, and senior executive roles, people would always knock on my door every time I'm having a conversation. Somebody would always knock on my door for something. There's something going on. Those type of situations will make it difficult for you to focus in on a difficult conversation because you have people knocking on the door. However, if you happen to be maybe someone that does not have as much traction, because I managed a lot of people at once, maybe you just manage one or two people, then you may be in a physical setting where you can have a difficult conversation without interruptions rather, and you can have the conversation easier. A lot of it just depends on your physical setting, what's going on outside of those four walls that you were in. In terms of the other settings you mentioned, if you're in a social setting specifically, it just depends on who's around. I think that's a big part of difficult conversations. You don't want to have a difficult conversation if you are talking about an issue that someone brought to you and that someone is right there and you're having a conversation with the person about the issue that's right beside of you. You want to make sure that in social settings and you're having difficult conversations, try to distance yourself from the rest of the group. And that will give you a bit more of a somewhat, even though it's social, you still feel like the conversation is a bit more private because you're not in front of the group of people. You have moved your way over here and done that. Now, what I do a lot of times, Cap, is when I have those situations come up, because they do in many settings, I'll say, is it okay if we step over here for a moment? Or can we step over here for just a moment? And help that person be able to go over there. Now, the times that I'll do that, and this is just something to add to it, is when I'm having a conversation with someone and I can tell this conversation is going from cordial to difficult. Maybe there's something that they are dealing with personally that they are talking about. You can see the person may be starting to get upset. They may start to become teary-eyed. You can tell by their facial expressions that they may be a bit more concerned. Then that is your cue to say, wait, something's wrong. Something's going on here. This person's not comfortable. Let me try to move them away to a more comfortable place, but within the group setting, so to speak, if that makes sense. Hopefully that gives you some insight in terms of how to think about that. Sarah Shaw says, then Palestine okay. And Hayanur says, I just subscribed as well. Smiley face. Well, welcome, friend. Welcome to the amazing, amazing leaders here on YouTube. As I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of channels here that specifically talk about high stakes, high pressure communication, definitely in a live format. Most of the time it's pre-recorded, highly edited, and etc. I'm here to give you live insights, real time, and share with you anything I can do to help you be able to be on your journey. We have GGGHH. Hello, welcome. And Cat23 says, confidence comes from seeing yourself succeed, especially when you doubted you could. Create low-stakes environments where mistakes don't cascade. Separate failure from identity. Very good insight, Kat, and I appreciate that. And that is one of the most important aspects of confidence is you have to build it within yourself. That's number one. People can help you to become more confident and tell you you're great and tell you you're amazing, but there's something that has to click internally in you to help you be confident. Therefore, Hayanur, when you're in those situations, that confidence kicks in. I personally feel confident in any conversation, but it has taken me 20 years to do that. Outside of being a C-suite executive, outside of being a senior executive, I've been a public speaker, and that helps out a lot, but it's taken me a while to share and develop my skill set, which is why I'm sharing everything that I know with you all. Of course, there's only but so much I can do with you when we're communicating via YouTube and live. That's why when you're at that point when you're really ready to really start making those quick moves in your careers and you're managing those complex situations, or you're in those very, very, very highly visible roles, that's why you reach out to me personally so we can work together one-on-one, because of course there's only but so much I can do in a live setting. Hidden Human TV says, I will do same. Control the outcome. Interesting. I actually made breakdowns on this and more topics on my page. Well, Hidden Human TV, tell me about, do you have a YouTube channel? I don't know. I don't remember seeing you. Well, I think maybe, no. Let me take a screenshot. If you have a YouTube channel, you're more than welcome, and you said you have a page, you're more than welcome to talk about it here and let me know if someone wants to take a look at your channel and and check it out, I'd be happy to mention it. Just let me know where are you at right now. I know you're on YouTube, obviously, but are you on YouTube and Instagram? And maybe tell a little bit more about what you're working on so I can share it with the audience. Hi, Anur 5908 says, okay, I'll try my best to get a bit of information and stuff. And I'll try to stay till the end as well. Absolutely. And just know that the lives, it depends on the conversation. The lives sometimes go longer. For instance, we've been talking right now for 50 minutes. And if you don't have time to stay, it's completely okay. You're always welcome to watch the replays. If you have a specific question you want to ask me, then just put it in any of the comment sections on any of the videos that you see. I'd be happy to give you a response. And I will also do a video just for you and give you a shout out if there's a lot of depth I need to cover. I will start doing more pre-recorded videos here very soon where it's more focused topics within a certain amount of time. But I'm here to support you all, especially live. As I mentioned, there's no channels on YouTube that are doing live conversations like this as it relates to high stakes, high pressure situations. They're just not out there. Hi, Nora says, and again, thank you both. Thank both of you and Kat. Absolutely. We're here to help you any way that we can. Hidden Human TV says 100. Cat 23rd says at Hi, Nora. All thanks to Doc. I'm just helping out. But all the credit to ma'am over here. Oh, well, thank you, Kat. I appreciate that. But hey, ultimately, we make a team. All of us here on the channel are here to support each other and help everyone. Dr. Ugly says, you look poor. Well, Dr. Ugly, then obviously this isn't the channel for you, friend. You should be at a different channel where you control it there. But I've just hidden you, so you will not be back here. All right, and Hayanur says, Dr. Ugly, why would you say that? That's not true. Well, Hayanur, let me tell you something. Ultimately, as you grow, and I've said this before, so do the trolls. And a lot of people will say the most random, silly stuff. I've had the most offensive things said on this channel about me and my ethnicity. I've had people just say the most just rude, vile, just disrespectful things. And I let it go. These situations do not bother me, but I have built my executive presence for the past 20 years to where situations like that don't faze me. I just deal with it and say something about it and go on my way. Because what happens, and this is one of the things I hope that I help you all see also. A lot of times, a lot of my clients come to me and they say, if I could just learn how to just talk back. And I'm not saying talk back in a ballsy way, but talk back, meaning if someone says something rude, like Dr. Ugly, and obviously Dr. Ugly, Dr. Ugly, but anyways, poor choice of words. But I will say that a lot of people want to know, how can I defend myself when those situations come up? How can I communicate confidently and concisely under pressure? A lot of times I can tell you what to do. I can tell you how to say it. I can tell you when to say it. I can tell you where to say it. I can tell you what you need to observe. I can tell you everything from A to Z in terms of how you can navigate a high stakes, high pressure conversation. However, a lot of times you will not be able to learn it unless you hear someone deal with it. And when those situations come up, because they have came up a lot on this channel. I've had people talk about they were the queens and they were looking down at everybody else and they were nothing. I mean, literally people have said the most ridiculous things on this channel. But if you don't know how to handle these situations and I don't go through it and show you how I handle it, then it makes it hard for you to learn how to really build your executive presence, how to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure if you don't see it. Sometimes you have to see it and you have to understand how does someone handle that to start picking up and say, oh, I know Dr. Jacinta. When the person said, Dr. Ugly said something, did I acknowledge his comment? I did. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. If I want to make a point, I will, because I want to show you this is how you handle rude people. So I hope that helps you. So how you new? Don't worry about that. Hidden Human TV says, yes, I'm new here. Well, welcome. I know I have not seen you on here before, so welcome, welcome. Hidden Human TV says YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Okay. Fantastic. So tell me a little bit. Okay, well, we got something here. Hidden Human TV says at Hayanur 5908, yes, 100%. The easiest way to be more confident in any conversation is to stop trying to sound perfect and focus on being genuinely curious. Absolutely. Very good point. Very good point, Hidden Human TV. Ask simple questions, listen well, and don't rush your words. Confidence comes from being present, not from having the best reply. The more you practice small conversations daily, the more natural it becomes. That's some really great insight, Hidden Human TV, and that is definitely what we focus here on the channel. It is really important to do it every day. So when you're having those situations, those conversations where you're feeling a bit of angst or you're feeling a bit of anxiety because you're just not sure in terms of what specifically you want to say and how you want to say it, every day is a practice. Every day you practice the same way an athlete practice, or if you're going to school, you're trying to learn and educate yourself, it comes a lot through practice. Hayanur 5908 says, thank you, at Hidden Human TV. I'm learning a lot here. Absolutely. That's what we're here for, is to help you learn and to help you grow very, 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 very quickly. Cat 23 says, authenticity and confidence are deeply connected, but being yourself can feel impossible when you're not sure who that is or when past environments punished it. Kat, that's a really, really great insight, because you have to have that sense of who you are. It is hard for you to be able to do it if you don't know who you are, to develop that confidence. That's why there's so much internally you have to do to build up your confidence. Now, there's the internal confidence you have to deal with, but then there's the external confidence, and that's what you're projecting to people, what you show, and the confidence, and I talk about this in my 4-part series, that other people have in you. Because you may be, let's say, for example, and this is not anyone specifically, but let's say you're a person that just talks about the things you do, you talk about the things you do, you talk about things you do. Oh, I'm going to follow up with that person. I'm going to follow up with this person. I'm going to follow up with this. But you just don't do it. You just don't follow up. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. You don't follow up, or you're not able to make that connection. Well, or maybe you're not able to finish that project. Well, we know that things happen, but people will start to lose confidence in you if you continue to do things like that. So confidence is multifactorial. There's so many things that go into confidence. Confidence is not just you, but it starts with you. But there's so many things that go into it. Let me know if you have any other questions about it, and we can definitely talk about confidence some more. Okay, Cat 23 says, you build confidence by being yourself, but being yourself requires confidence. That's a really good point, Kat. I appreciate you bringing that up, friend. Hidden Human TV says, welcome at Hayanur 5908. You can learn more in our pages, and I appreciate at Excite Excellence. Well, thank you, Hidden Human TV. I'm definitely going to take a look at your channel, and I'm on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok, but I am on Instagram. I think, where were you at again? Let me go back. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. So I spend a bit more time here on YouTube, of course, and Instagram, some on Facebook, not too much, but I definitely will take a look. I believe I took a screenshot. I'm gonna take one more just to make sure I have it, and I will follow you and take a look. I appreciate you being here. Hidden Human TV says, I just subbed to you. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and like the live. Well, appreciate that. Appreciate you being here. It does allow it to reach more people, specifically here on YouTube. I know Hidden Human TV, you have your channel. If you want to talk a little bit about what you share on your channel, I'll be happy to share it with the audience. Scylla, I know I'm not saying this right, and I'm sorry, friend. Let me try to see what I can do here. Silu Ramana, I hope I'm saying it right, and I'm sorry if I'm not. Says, hello. You're a teacher. No, I'm not a teacher. I'm a doctor. So for those of you who are new to me and have never met me before, I am a dentist by profession, so to speak. I've been a dentist for a very, 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 very long time. Love dentistry, but I've had a bit of a unique life in terms of being in that situation. I've had the chance to work in senior executive roles where I manage a lot of people. I've made millions and millions of dollars in revenue, and I've been a C-suite executive for a really long time, and I've been in those very friendly and very contentious situations. I spent a lot of time with many congressional leaders over the years at some of our highest of the government here in the United States. I was picked one of two dental students in the entire country to spend time with congressional leaders here with the American Dental Association. And I've been in those friendly and contentious conversations. I'm not a teacher, but I have a lot to share. I am an executive coach, a public speaker, and a consultant, and I'm here to really help you any way that I can to be able to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. This is a big gap. People struggle with this, and a lot of times I've seen people talk about high stakes communication, but they're doing it in the form of an academic setting. A lot of times they talk about there's this theory, there's this hypotheses, and all of that. Even though I've went to school forever to be a doctor, ultimately you have to learn from real life. What happens in the real world, not what happens in a book according to someone that may have not actually been in these situations. And that's what I'm here to bridge that gap, because people talk about communicating, and there's plenty of people that communicate exceptionally well. But what happens when that conversation goes under pressure? That's my expertise. That's what I'm here to help you all with. Cat 23 says, talk about a dream team. Exactly, Cat. Sulu Ramana, I hope I'm saying your name right, friend. You look very calm. I am very calm. I'm very calm majority of the time. I've been through a lot. That's the reason why. Hidden Human TV says, I talk about dark psychology on my page, The Hidden Human Truths. Okay, well, fantastic. Well, I definitely will take a look at that for sure. I'll definitely check you out. Hidden Human TV says, wow, congratulations to you. I like your profession. Well, appreciate that. Thank you so much. Higher 5908 says, congrats on becoming a dentist. I'm probably late to you becoming it, but it is hard. It is very hard to, I think you're saying it's very hard to be, I believe. Oh, sorry, you did clarify. Hard to get to be one. Yes, it's hard. It's very hard. If you've ever known what life is like when you sleep for 1 hour and take about 16 tests in a day, that's the life. We all of us that go to school for forever, medical doctors, dentists, and etc., we all take the same classes the first couple of years. We take anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pharmacology, all of that. And then our third and fourth years where all of us go to our different disciplines specifically. But it is challenging. It is hard. It's very humbling. I can tell you, just my first year of school and being a dentist was hard. It was so hard I wanted to quit. And that is someone that graduated with a bachelor's degree in biology, went to graduate school and received a Master of Science in Public Health. And then I went to dental school and I was going to quit. The first year, it was just too hard. It was so hard. I don't know what to tell you. It's so hard. But ultimately, I made it through. I had to spend many, many nights. Anatomy and physiology is hard. It's difficult because you just, it's just hard. I don't know what else to say. I literally, my first year of school, or first semester, I can't tell you how many nights I basically was in our anatomy lab until 5, 6 o'clock in the morning with dead bodies, just so that I could learn what innervates this, what is this structure, what does this do. It is hard. So you're right. I could definitely have a video about that. But school is hard, especially when you're at the doctorate level. Any school is really hard. There's different challenges to it, but every specific industry has their own challenges. And I'm just sharing with you from a doctor standpoint, it's hard. There's nights where I've slept literally I told one of my friends, literally my classmate, we were studying and our test was at 7 o'clock. I think our test was at 8 o'clock in the morning. I told her, I said, I'm going to take a nap for 1 hour and we're going to go take these tests. I literally sat on the desk, put my head down and took a nap for an hour and got up and took, I think we had like 10, 12 tests that day. That's just the life. That's really what happens, if you all wanted to know. Okay, so Cat 23 says, gotta go through some to win some. Cat, that's so true. High five, friend. You definitely gotta go through something to win some. That is true. Muddy XX, hello, welcome. Cat says, shout out to you, Doc. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So we talked a lot about difficult conversations. And I've shared with you the mistakes that I made. I want you all to avoid these mistakes as much as you possibly can. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can share with you about this conversation I had. I told you about the exits. That was a mistake I made. I boxed myself in where I couldn't get out of the room when I needed to. And that was challenging. When I felt threatened in this conversation, I should have immediately said this conversation's over and walked out. I should have, because I felt threatened. Now, I wasn't actually physically, attacked or anything, but it definitely felt like it for sure. Okay, Hidden Human TV says you're putting on 2 watches. Yes, I have 2 watches, Hidden Human TV. I get that a lot, and actually, it's interesting you say that. I was talking to a multimillionaire about 4 weeks ago, and he had asked me the same thing. He's like, "Why do you have 2 watches?" Well, I have 2 watches because I have kids. So one watch is for my kids and everything that happens with a personal life. My other watch is for strictly my business, my YouTube channel. Any notifications I receive is business. So I do have 2 watches. For you all to know, that's the reason why I have 2, because I have a business watch and I have a personal watch, just the same thing as I have with my phones. When you are developing your businesses and etc., depending on your role, if you are really busy or you're practicing, like for instance, if I'm practicing as a dentist or if I'm doing something, I have to be able to quickly see like what's going on. So I know what's going on. So that's the reason why I have 2 watches. And it was a special they gave me at AT&T. Okay, Cat 23rd gives me a high five back. Kingsley, let's see. I'm going to see if I'm going to get this right. Let's see. We have Kingsley Babatun Dio Ochiku. And I'm going to say that just because one of my classmates had that last name. Says, good morning. Hope you're doing well. And let me know what questions you all have. Let me know what mistakes. Let's talk about very briefly before we wrap up. If you've ever had a difficult conversation, what mistakes did you make in that difficult conversation that we need to talk about so that we can make sure the people that watch the live videos or watch the replays has a very, very, very good working knowledge of mistakes they need to make for difficult conversations? Put it in the comments below. Let's talk about a couple things that you have maybe experienced when you were having a difficult conversation that you completely made a mistake on and you wish you would have avoided. I've listed off several, but I definitely want to hear from you to know if there's anything that you want to share with the audience so that we can all continue to grow together. Another thing I'll mention too about difficult conversations, and I've talked about this a lot on my channel, is your tone of voice. Now, this was a mistake I made, and as I mentioned, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, what other mistakes did I made? I made a lot, as you can tell, and I want you all not to make them. But my tone of voice was not nice. It was not a nice tone of voice during this conversation, and that was completely my mistake. If I would have done things differently or had the opportunity to do it over, I would have had the difficult conversation in the way that I've talked to you about specifically on my channel many, 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 many times, and had a more conversational like tone of voice instead of having a very, you did this wrong, this is not right type of tone of voice. I made a mistake with that. And a lot of it had to do with the type of mistake. It was a very, very egregious mistake. I mean, it was a pretty big one. But instead of me having a more direct, more firm tone of voice with this person, I still, even though I knew it was bad, really, 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 really bad, I still should have been able to communicate with them at my normal baseline to the point where they didn't feel threatened. Maybe that's why they responded the way that they did, but I think this person was probably just an angry person, and I just didn't know it because, as I mentioned earlier, the mistake I made is that I did not know the person I was having a difficult conversation with because I was new in my role. If I would have known them, I would have known I should not communicate with them that way. I should talk to them a bit more in a collaborative way to have the difficult conversation and go from there. Okay, Hidden Human TV says, reacting too quickly instead of listening. Thank you for mentioning that. A calm pause can save a difficult conversation. Absolutely. And Hidden Human TV, I appreciate you so much for bringing that up because that's actually very, very helpful. Not listening will get you into trouble. And we talk about this a lot on the channel in terms of being able to listen, hearing what the other person is talking about, not only listening with your ears, but also observing with your eyes as well, because the person will tell you a lot by what they are not saying. Their body language, their facial expressions will tell you a lot. And for those of you who are new to me, one of the first facial expressions that you want to pay very, very, very close attention to when you're talking to someone having a difficult conversation is their eyebrows. Their eyebrows will tell you a lot. It will tell you what is going on in their mind that maybe they don't want to say. Eyebrows, unless they are subscribed to the channel, unless they are trained to control their facial expressions, as we talk about here on the channel, they will probably have some reaction to their eyebrows based on what you say. It's either going to be surprised, or they're going to be mad, or they're going to be perplexed. It's going to be something, and you want to pay attention to that first. But reacting too quickly is definitely a reason. It's definitely a mistake that people can sometimes make. You want to make sure that you don't do that. All right, Cat 23rd says, well, me, the biggest mistake I made was take personal problems from home to the conversation. I was pretty aggressive towards the person because I had a bad day I was having and regretted it on that day. And I appreciate you, Kat, so much for mentioning that. Thank you for the heart emojis. I appreciate that so much, because sometimes we do that. We take personal problems and we take them home. And that is a mistake that we want to try to avoid. When you have those difficult conversations, there's a place where when you get home or you're in your residence, you have to almost have a switch. Like, you got to turn it off, because it will start to impact your life. I personally struggled with this initially when I was working as a C-suite, when I had a lot of hard conversations with a lot of different people. I would come home and just, thank you for the heart emojis, and just talk about it. And it would just cause problems. So I appreciate you so much for mentioning that. And those are mistakes we will try not to make. Hi, Nora says, I think sometimes accidentally have a rude tone when I don't mean to be rude at all. I'm working on that now. Fantastic. Well, you absolutely will learn a lot from this channel. We talk about managing your emotions under pressure. And that may be something to think about, because when you're very tired, you're very exhausted. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. When you're really tired and you're really exhausted, it's so easy to just come across as just rude. Why? Because in your mind, you're thinking, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and I don't want to deal with this right now. And that's the way we come across. It is something that you will develop over time, but the fact that you know this is an issue, and this is from me speaking to you as an executive coach, the fact that you know this is an issue that you are aware of is the first step to helping you to be able to overcome it. The next time when you have those moments where you might be a bit more tired, a bit more frustrated, you know that I sometimes will come across as being very rude when I'm tired. Therefore, I may not want to have this conversation with this person right now because I'm tired. I will wait and have it the next day. I have personally done this as a director, as a C-suite, countless times. People would say, this person did this mistake. They made a problem. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. They did this wrong. They did that wrong. You need to talk to them today. You need to talk to them today. And I would tell them, I will talk to them tomorrow. And they would look at me as if I had lost it. Why are you talking to them tomorrow? Why are you not talking to them today? Because they don't know my mental disposition. I may be tired, hi, Nora. I may be exhausted, and I don't want to have a conversation that I know is going to be difficult with someone that may come across as rude, especially with me being the leader. I'm really big on how you communicate to your team, because you have to be able to respect them too. Akitsia, hello Akitsia, welcome friend. Hope you're doing well today. Good to see you, Akitsia DeCalis. All right, Akitsia says, of course, ladies and gentlemen, the King of Greece entered the live. 1 minute silent to pay honor, everybody. Good to see you, Akitsia. Hope you're doing well today, friend. Akitsia says, Doctor, long time no see. I miss you. Likewise, friend. Welcome back. Welcome back. Good to see you, friend. All right, Hidden Human TV says, why do people trust confidence even when it's wrong? Oh, that's a really great question. Why do people trust confidence? Thank you for the heart emojis, even when it's wrong. Because people struggle with confidence. And if they see that someone struggles with confidence, and if well, let me rephrase. If most people, to some extent, Hidden Human TV, struggle with confidence to some level, when they see someone project confidence, even if it's wrong, they still feel like they're right. And I believe that's what you're alluding to. Why? Because they think, wow, this person is confident. They absolutely must know what they're talking about, even though they probably do not. They still see it as something that they don't have, and they just go ahead and trust the person just because they probably are dealing with some aspect of confidence that they are struggling with, and they do not feel as confident as they need to be. That would be why I have seen people feel like they can trust people that show confidence, even though they don't know what they're talking about. It all comes down to communication. It all comes down to communication, your executive presence, how you are doing all of that. That's what we talk about on the channel. And that's a really good question, Hidden Human TV. Kat says, Hidden Human TV, confidence signals direct gaze, decisive movement, clear voice, indicated capability, and reduced group uncertainty. Absolutely, Kat. I appreciate you bringing that up. And Kat knows we talk about this on the channel all the time. Hidden Human TV says, at Kat 23rd 100. Exactly. Okay, Akesia says, hidden human, lots of reasons, as sometimes are under high pressure regarding money or time. Right, and so when you have, and kind of a combination of Akesia and also with Kat, when you have those situations when there's uncertainty going on, people that are maybe the followers, so to speak, they are looking for certainty. They want to see someone that is certain in terms of what they're saying. Even if it's wrong, Hidden Human TV, they want to feel that sense of security that things are going to be okay. This confident leader said everything's going to be okay, even though they may not be know exactly what they're referring to or what they're even talking about. But there is this herd mentality that happens when you see someone that is confident under pressure. Now, I focus that specifically on this is my whole work here on this planet Earth, is to help you communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure, so that you are the person that people look to and say, I know this person knows what's going on. I trust them. But you will be the person that's actually telling information that's correct, not something that's completely a fabrication. We have Muzam. Let's see. I'm going to try to say Muza Mil Minijas, hopefully. Hope you're doing well. Says, hi, Mom. Well, I'm not your mom, but hello and welcome. Kat says, first confident position sets the frame, hard to dislodge. Absolutely. That's a really good point, Kat. I appreciate you bringing that up, because people pick up on those first impressions immediately. It's hard to dislodge. And we talked about this briefly. I'll share it with you, which is a good example of when that confidence goes away. But let me see what Akesia has to say. Doctor, what's the topic? We've been talking for 77 minutes now. We've been talking about what you need to avoid in difficult conversations. So I have had many difficult conversations, Akesia. There are a few ones that I have had that have been very, very notable to me, that were very, very changing in terms of my direction of my life and how I manage difficult conversations and what I share with y'all now. I went through a scenario, and I've been talking about all the mistakes I made in difficult conversations. We've had some really great insight from Kat, from Hidden Human TV, from Hayanur, that we've been talking about how to have these situations. How do you make the best out of a difficult conversation and avoid mistakes? So that's what we're talking about, is just what do you need to avoid doing when you're having difficult conversations. If you have time, you may want to take a look at the replay, because we talked about quite a bit today. And in terms of that first confident position, as Kat mentioned, this is really important. I've shared with you all when I was on the news, I shared with you, you may have heard me talk about what happened. There was two people, me and another person, representing a organization that was on the news. We are both our peers. And when the news anchor asked this person a question first, The person, the confident phrase, confident position, as you mentioned, Kat, it was gone. That person did not know what to say and completely froze. And it was a pause that was a pause that said you didn't know what you were talking about. That first frame is the one that people cannot forget. They always say, I remember when this person was on the news with Dr. Jacinta and they didn't know what they're talking about. Even though they did, that very first interaction where they literally froze, the camera was on them and they just completely froze. It just looked like, you may not know what you're talking about. So that first position, as you mentioned, Kat, is very, 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 very important. All right, let's see. We have Live TV 3164 says, are you from Nepal? No, I am based out of the Sunshine State of Florida in the United States. Aketia says, okay. Let's see. Muzam, I'm going to say. Okay, so maybe you should take something and let's see, like when you're doing yoga, it says to relax your mind, you should breathe in and breathe out. Yes, and actually, Muzam, and let me know how to pronounce your name because I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly. Being able to breathe is really important. It's a very great grounding exercise to help you be able to relax in those situations because it can be kind of hard, very difficult when you're under pressure. You have to find out your own way to regulate your stress. I help my clients do this all the time because I can share with you only but so much here live, but there comes a point where I have to work with you one-on-one. And that breathing is definitely very, very important. I appreciate you mentioning that. Kat says, when confidence fails, repeated exposure reveals pattern of error. Yes, it does. Stakes are personal and consequences immediate. Kat, I appreciate you mentioning that because that's 100% correct. And that's how you start to build your executive presence. If someone keeps making those mistakes, and they're trying to build their executive presence, every single time somebody sees that, they will say, this person don't know what they're talking about. They're not confident. Why should I listen to them? They don't even know what's going on. And those confidence fails, it truly does impact how you build your executive presence, how you present yourself as a leader, and people start to distrust you and think you don't know what's going on. But if you're subscribed to this channel, you know that is not what's going to happen to you. Hidden Human TV says, at Aketia, what's up? All right, some interaction there. Cat 23 says, was it CNN? Smiley face. No, it was actually ABC News. Weir is W-E-A-R, ABC3 W-E-A-R, and that was a couple years ago. Muzam says bye-bye because, okay, so I'm not sure what you're referring to there. Hidden Human TV says, I'm leaving now, family. I appreciate y'all. Well, we appreciate you being here. Glad you subscribed. I will absolutely, and it's Hidden Human TV, so y'all can take a look at the channel as well. I'll definitely take a look at your channel and take a look at you on Instagram, so I'll follow you there. Appreciate you being here. This is a longer live because I'm not going live tomorrow. Typically, I go live very consistently. I'm on YouTube's live streamer research panel, Hidden Human TV, because I go live that much. And I typically go live Tuesday in the morning and the evening, Wednesday in the evening, Thursday in the morning and the evening, and Friday in the morning and the evening. Therefore, tomorrow, since it's Good Friday, I'm not going live, so I spend a little bit more time with my audience in the evening. But I hope to see you on another live, friend, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day, and I'll connect with you. Aketia says, life full of difficult conversations. Life is not easy. A difficult conversation usually is the result. That's true. Very true, Aketia. To avoid a possible difficult conversation, performance may be the key. Yes, and you have to prepare, and preparing is so important. And I know, Aketia, we've talked about this, but that performance, you don't just wake up one day and say, I can handle all difficult conversations in the planet, I'm good. It's hard to do that. It's something you have to just really prepare for. And sometimes it does feel like a performance because you've prepared for it and you're executing it. And that's what's really important. Kat also says, at Hidden Human TV, appreciate your input, man. Absolutely. With a 100 and a heart. Absolutely. I really appreciate Hidden Human TV's insights as well. Haya Noor says, bye at Hidden Human TV. Have a good day/night. Akitsia says, sometimes a easygoing conversation may go wrong, not because of you, but from the other side. Stay calm and listen. Akitsia, that is exactly what happened to me. I was having a difficult conversation, and the conversation went in a different direction so fast I did not know what to do. And that's the reason why we're talking about all the mistakes you want to avoid making when you are having a difficult conversation. Hopefully, individuals that watch the live or watch the replay are able to gain some insight here. Feel free to share this video with your colleagues, your friends, your family, because it will help them learn the mistakes you want to make, especially if they're in leadership roles. It's really important to do that. This is one of those videos that I will probably post quite a bit, just because we've came up with so many mistakes that you can make in a difficult conversation, and it is a good foundation to help you not to make those mistakes. Kat says, the most reliable experts often sound less confident than the least reliable because they understand complexity. That's a really good point, Kat, and I appreciate you mentioning that, because that is something a lot of people fail to realize. Just because you may not say as much, that doesn't mean you don't know a lot. And people sometimes will take that for weakness until they get completely blown away by what someone has to say. Akitsia says, your calm position impacts positively. It does. Being calm in a difficult conversation helps you to control the conversation. And Hidden Human TV asked a great question earlier. And if you all remember the question, and for those of you watching, this was a good question that Hidden Human TV asked. Would you rather win the argument or win the outcome? And what Akitsia is mentioning reminds me of that statement or that question, because if you're calm, you may not win the argument. The person may say, I don't care what you have to say. This is ridiculous. I don't know why you're talking to me about this. They may win. They may win. But who controls the outcome? The person that's calm, the person that is able to communicate under pressure. And this is absolutely a reason why you want to be very positive. Akitsia says, you can offer him or her a coffee or tea. I like that, Akitsia. I like that. And let me explain to you why Akitsia just completely gave an insight a lot of people don't think about when it comes to difficult conversations. Thank you for the heart emojis. There are certain ways for you to disarm a person when you're having a difficult conversation. You know, this conversation is going to be difficult. It's going to be a very, very challenging conversation. What are some things you can do to disarm this person? Starting off by what I say specifically, how are things going for you? What do you need support with? But, if you offer the person or her, him or her, a coffee or a tea before your difficult conversation, they're going to just automatically just relax. Because a lot of times when you are a leader, and thank you for the heart emojis, friends, when you are in a leadership role and people come and talk to you, it is as if you are coming to the principal's office. How many of you have ever been in that situation where you're talking to someone, you have to go to your manager and etc., and you feel like you're going to the principal's office? Well, your team feels the same way when they come and talk to you. They feel like they're going to the principal's office and they may be in trouble. If you offer them a coffee or a tea, it helps them to disarm and say, oh, okay, this is going to be okay. We're just having a conversation. That's a great way to disarm someone. So Akitsia, that is a really good insight, and I appreciate you so much for bringing that up. That's something that people can use to be able to make the difficult conversation not so hard. Abdul Hassan says, you butcher? I don't know what you're talking about. Cat 23rd says, learning to hear past confidence to value curiosity, specificity, and intellectual humility is a critical skill. Absolutely, Cat, it definitely is. But it fights deep wiring. It is. It does. It really does. Because if someone is is maybe they just have their triggers, right? They have some triggers that they're dealing with. It can be somewhat difficult for them to go over that. I appreciate the heart emojis. Kat also says we trust confidence because we want to believe the world is knowable and someone knows it. Yes, we do. But as Hidden Human TV mentioned earlier today, why why do people trust people that show confidence but don't know what they're talking about, basically? So it's something to think about. All right, Kat says this is existential as much as practical. Uncertainty is unbearable. That's true. Confidence offers relief. That is very true too, Kat. The desire for certainty is older and stronger than the desire for accuracy. Very, very true. Very well said, Kat. I appreciate you mentioning that. And this is basic human nature that Kat is talking about. This is why people do what they do. They want to be certain. They want to be confident. They want to be safe. These are basic human needs that everyone needs to have. And what Kat mentioned is very insightful because people don't want to live in uncertain times. They don't want to live like that. When they're in uncertain times, they're very quickly going to just want to say, okay, I'm done with it. Think about what's going on in the world now. We have all this wars and things going on. People don't like that. People don't want to be in wars. They don't want to deal with uncertainty. They want to be safe. They want to feel like the world, we know what's going on. They want to feel confident. You know, people want to have those very basic human needs. And that happens a lot when you are communicating as well. You want your audience, your group, your team, or etc., to feel that. You want them to feel safe, that they can talk to you, that you know what you're talking about. You have as much as you can under control. Even when there's times when you may not know what you're doing, you still are pushing through it anyway, and your team will see that. Akesia says, Doctor, we are winning. USA plus Greece united. USA plus Greece equals united. Absolutely, Akesia. That is correct, friend. Kat says, recognizing this in yourself, your own hunger for someone to be sure is the beginning of immunity. That's a good point. I really appreciate you mentioning that as well, because you're right. You want to be in a situation where you're starting to understand and know how you can become better. And how can you become better? You have to become a bit stronger and etc. So you all have came up with some really fantastic insights today, and I appreciate you so much. We've been live for an hour and a half now, and I've enjoyed every second of it as always. I appreciate you all so much. Akesia says, Doctor, which is your biggest achievement of winning a difficult conversation? Let's see what I can tell you specifically. Difficult conversation that I won. There is one difficult conversation that I won. There's only but so much detail I can go into it, but I'll give you an overview. I had a conversation, and I was working for an organization where my boss at the time wanted me to do something that I felt was just catastrophic. It was bad. My department specifically was generating a lot of revenue, and there were some, I would say, promises made to people that didn't go through me, even though I was the one managing the department. It directly impacted me, but no one came to talk to me about it. So there were some promises made that we were going to be doing XYZ, which would require me to take my very high performing individuals to a location that was low performing, which would cause that location to not really generate revenue because it's already low performing based on the location of it, and cause my biggest location that was making a lot of revenue to lose money. And it was a difficult conversation, and I didn't quite understand, why would someone want me to lose money? I'm helping to build an organization. I'm building my part of the world. Why would someone want me to lose money? I didn't understand that. It was a difficult conversation. And in this conversation specifically, I had a conversation. I changed my baseline. My baseline went from normal, what it was, and it went up. And I said, explain to me why it is that you want me to lose money. And the conversation itself was a defining conversation, because not only did my boss at the time get pushback from me because I felt like it was complete nonsense. But the room, it was a couple people in the room, they saw me basically argue, or I would say debate with my boss. And a lot of people didn't do that. And that in itself, it still was a winning conversation because I know even after I left that role, people were still talking about, wow, Dr. Jacinta just said, no, this doesn't make sense. And a lot of people, when you're working with bosses and etc., they kind of tread on eggshells, so to speak, or walk on eggshells because they don't want to say something that may be argumentative or disruptive. But for me, Akesia, if something doesn't make sense, it just flat out doesn't make sense. And I'm not the person to sit there and sugarcoat it. I'm not going to sit there and just turn a deaf ear and act like I don't hear it. I mean, some stuff just doesn't make sense. And it was a trickle down effect. So it wasn't just that the department was going to lose money, but those high performers were not going to be able to perform as well as they had in the past, and they were going to lose money. And there was a lot of conversations that were made, political conversations at that. That's why I know a lot about politics, that were made in those situations that didn't take into consideration the livelihood of other people. And that for me is when you're not thinking clearly and strategically like that, that's a no. There's a certain line that I have in terms of what I put up and what I don't put up with, and that was just past it. And I wasn't mean, but my baseline did go up because I felt like it didn't make any sense. Hi, Nora says, so what I have got from this live is that tone, how you phrase your sentences, and more things. Absolutely. There's a lot of videos on my channel, thank you for the heart emojis, friends, that talk about tone of voice and how to have those conversations, what to say, how to say. But yes, that is something that's really important for you to focus on as you're trying to manage yourself and know that you might want to speak in a bit of a softer tone depending on the situation. Kat says, immediate gratification, we optimize for present comfort over future correctness. Kat, very well said. Absolutely, because we don't want to be in pain, right? And sometimes immediately we say, oh, the conversation's over, I'm done. But ultimately, it may not be the best move in the future. Hi, Nora says, matter when you are having a conversation. Okay, going back to your question. Akesia says, doctor, love you, haha. Thank you, appreciate that, friend. Kat says, pluralistic ignorance, such as no one speaks, confidence goes unchallenged. That's true. That's very true. Because when no one speaks, confidence goes unchallenged. And I'm telling you, Kat, with this situation I had, this was the leader of the organization. I was a part of that leadership, but this is the leader. And if I would have said nothing, that's that same situation, okay? Just like Hidden Human TV said, why do people trust people when they're confident and they're saying something wrong? When no one speaks, that confidence becomes unchallenged and unchecked. And what I did in that situation was I did a hard check and said, wait, this makes no sense whatsoever. And that caused issues between me and that particular person. And I ended up leaving the organization because I was pretty much over it at that point. But confidence unchallenged can be an issue. There's always a balance. There's a way you have that conversation, but you have to. That's the thing with leadership. We have to be strategic. We have to think ahead. We can't just think for that immediate gratification, as you mentioned. A lot of leaders will think that. They will say, okay, I need money immediately. I need money now, or I need money right this second. And they'll go for that immediate gratification. They'll make that deal when they know they can't fulfill on it. All kinds of things happen, but it costs you in the future. So I appreciate you mentioning that, Kat. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. Kat says, in addition to that, everyone privately doubts the confident person. Yes, they do. And I will tell you, when this particular situation happened, people started to look at me a little bit differently because I said what other people didn't want to say, or what was the elephant in the room nobody wanted to acknowledge, because sometimes stuff doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. But it's important to be that person. And you cannot be that person if you're not confident in all conversations. Now, I'll tell you that discussion I just mentioned to you, I knew it was going to be a difficult conversation. I already knew because there was already some rumblings going on. I knew it was going to be difficult, and I came ready for it. In case it went south and it didn't make sense, I was already frustrated over it. I was already ready for it. So making sure you are prepared at all times for difficult conversations is important. Another thing too is to not have some data. I think that's a mistake that I made with my difficult conversation, not the one I just referred to you as, the one I talked about at the very beginning of the live. Make sure you have that time, that data, so that when someone tries to challenge you or try to say, no, I don't agree, this isn't right, you have your facts together, you have your statistics, just one or two talking points, that's it. You don't have to memorize all the numbers and all the combination of numbers in the universe. Just one or two, or one is fine. But make sure you have some data to support you. Thank you for the heart emojis. Therefore, when that happens, this is something that comes up. Akesia says, great example, 5-star speaker, Doctor, we are winning. Well, I appreciate that. This is reality. This is exactly what happened to me. And some of you may wonder, well, how can you communicate in this way? How do you know what to say? Friends, I've been through it. This is the reason why I've been through it. I've seen how things can be very successful. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. I've seen how situations can go really bad. I've seen how leaders can be very confident and people can just completely have their organizations go bankrupt, so to speak, because of someone making decisions and they're not being strategic about it. This is why it's so important to have good guidance when you're trying to develop yourself as a leader. And this is a great place for it to do it. I appreciate everyone and your insights. You all have brought so much value to this conversation. And I know this live in particular is going to really support a lot of people because many people struggle with difficult conversations. And the fact that we were able to come up with a comprehensive, a really good list of mistakes that people make, that we all have made when we are making difficult conversations or have had difficult conversations. You have no idea, for those of you watching, how much you will impact future generations, because the videos will be around for a long time. People will look at this years from now and say, oh, this is what I need to not do when I have a difficult conversation with someone, and etc. So I appreciate you all so much. I will not be live tomorrow. It's Good Friday here, so there's a couple of things going on specifically. So I will not be live tomorrow, which is why I want to go a little bit and have a longer live today, because I will not be live. I will be coming back next Tuesday to come and talk about a couple more topics specifically. Let me know if there's anything that you are struggling with or anything that you are dealing with specifically. Let's talk about it on the next live as we're coming up. I'm here to support you in the way that I can. Akesia says, Dr. Kat says, next live, can we work on paradoxes? Yes. Do you have anything specific that you want to focus in on, Kat? And we can do that next live. I'll probably plan to do that the live in the evening when I'm not driving, so I can make sure I give that a lot of value. But Kat, is there anything specifically? Tell me specifically what you want to focus in on, and we'll do a live for you on that. I did want to mention to you next time, not next time, but I believe it was last Friday, there was a topic, Kat, that you came up with that I did do a live about, and I did give you a shout out in the video. It was talking about leadership mistakes. So take a look at that if you haven't had a chance to do that. It gives you some insight there. But yes, just let me know what paradoxes you want to focus in on, Kat, and we'll make a plan. Akesia says, Doctor, one minute. Okay, next time. Oh, I'm still going to be here for a few moments, Akesia. I appreciate you. Akesia, is there any topics you want to learn more about? Let me know, friend. I appreciate you being a part of the channel. Hi, Nora says, I'm going to leave now. Bye. See you next live if I can be there. Absolutely. And hi, Nora, if you cannot be there, no problem, friend. Take a look at the replays. If you watch any videos and something comes up for you, ask me a question in video. Leave a comment. I do review those, okay? And I appreciate you being here. And welcome to the channel with amazing leaders. Kat says the authenticity, the feedback. Okay, the authenticity, the feedback, the competence paradoxes. Sure, we can talk about that. Let me take a screenshot, and Kat will focus in on that for sure. Akesia says, okay, I will ask you. Absolutely. Feel free. We have Noah Ahmed 6604 says, hi, beautiful. Hello, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Kat says, lastly, the reassurance paradox. Okay, sure. So we will talk about those. Let me take another screenshot there. We may, depending on how this goes, we may do a couple of ones. I'll specifically relate those to communication and give you some insights there. Akesia says, what's your opinion for survivorship bias? Survivorship bias. Okay, so tell me give me more context. So when you mention survivorship bias, can you tell me specifically what you're referring to? Because there's a lot of ways you can unpack that, but let me know specifically what you might be referring to as it relates to survivorship bias. Because there's so many ways I could go with that. But let me know what you're talking about specifically, Akesia. And I would be happy to give you my opinion on that. While we're waiting for Akesia to respond, there's a ebook I mentioned to you all that I'm working on right now. It is a high stakes communication ebook. It's going to have its own high stakes communication assessment with it that you can take and get a sense of how do you communicate in those high stakes situations. Kat says survivorship bias distorts how we understand success, failure, and what actually works. It is particularly dangerous when mixed with confidence. I agree. It can distort things. So I want to just get from Akesia specifically kind of what Akesia is referring to. But the ebook is coming. I'm still working on that. I mentioned to y'all previously that I'm working on some pre-recorded videos. If you have any topics, I know Kat's got a few topics here specifically we may do on the lives, but if you have any topics specifically that are coming up for you that you're wanting to know more about, then let me know. And let me know what your thoughts are about this. There's a lot of things that are happening in the world today, and I'm most likely going to go back outside of just doing my recorded videos, but I'm also going to do some content that's more trending in terms of what leaders are saying right now and etc. And I'm going to do more of a reaction type of video with that. So for instance, if there's a situation happening, you see a leader speak, I may point out this is a great skill for you to do, or this is something you might want to avoid. So let me know if you want to see that type of content and in terms of my complete recorded content, because I'm going to do a mix of both, but I'm still going to be going live. Kat says, yay, ebook, 100%. Absolutely. I'm going to do what I can to make it as brief as it needs to be. I don't want to make it a full long book because that's what I'm going to be publishing later this year, but something that you can just start working through. Akesia says, people tend to focus on good results of others to copy rather than the failures. That's true, Akesia, and I appreciate you explaining that. Many people do that. They don't see what people fail at. They see what they are successful at. But you have to look at both. And if you have people that are willing to be candid with you and tell you what their failures are, it helps you to learn from them, which is the reason why I wanted to make this live, because I wanted to share with you the mistakes that I've made in hopes that you don't make those mistakes. Okay, Kat says, does your take of survivorship bias mean when we see the winners, not the losers who tried the same thing? I think Akesia is just saying that people do tend to focus, as he mentioned, people do tend to focus on the results, like what people do and copy rather than the failures. Because sometimes people, then they see the winners, like as you said, Kat, they see the winners, not the losers who tried the same thing. There's all these individuals out here who've tried to do things hundreds of times and they failed, and they failed, they failed, they failed, they failed, but they were able to be successful. So I think combining both of those and really having that ability to observe both is always really helpful. Kenneth Hicks says, hey, Heart. Hello, Kenneth. How are you doing today? Welcome, welcome. Akesia says, Kat 23rd, you are in. I'm waiting for Akesia to finish responding there. Let me know what other type of videos you all want to see on the channel. So let me know what type of videos you want to see. Is there any specific type of content that you want to see on the channel? Let me know. There's a couple different directions we can go into, and I appreciate you all so much. If you're watching the replay, you're always welcome to put it in the comments below and Let me know what you want to see in the channel. The channel is growing. We are getting really close to 1,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone for any YouTube channel. So I appreciate you all so much for that. And right now we're getting close to almost 1,000 videos on this channel. That is a lot. There are many YouTube channels that have a few hundred. There's many that have several hundreds, but there's not a lot that have over 1,000. So I appreciate you all so much for being a part of the lives and helping me to grow the channel. Having 1,000 videos is definitely not a small task. There's not a lot of content creators that have 1,000 videos on YouTube for sure. So I appreciate you all being a part of that, and that number will grow. My goal is to make a very comprehensive library. So when someone says, I need help communicating under pressure, I'm tired of freezing when I speak to other people, what do I do when someone interrupts me in a conversation? I want to have a comprehensive library where they can just come to the channel and just watch the videos and at least get some insight in terms of what they may want to start doing. Kat says, I'm in, smiley face, and 100. And Akesia says, Doctor, thank you for keeping us productive company. Absolutely. Absolutely. Kat says, I'm just glad I came across a channel. Who knew I needed it? Oh, and a heart and 100. Well, absolutely, Kat. I'm glad you're here too, friend. I appreciate you and I enjoy interacting with you so much and wishing you all the best for school. I know you're probably getting close to finals time. So I hope you do very, very well. I appreciate you all so much. If anything comes up for you, thank you for the heart emojis. Let me know. Let me know what kind of content you want to see on the channel. If there's any channels that you see on YouTube that you like a certain style of content, just let me know. I'm interested to do anything I can to help you all be able to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. I will not be live tomorrow, but I will see you all next Tuesday. Let me know what other questions you all have. I'm here to support you any way that I can. Akesia says, U.S. American management mouse wool plus Greek management model equals winners. Okay, I know what you're trying to say. Okay, thank you. Absolutely, Akesia. I appreciate that, friend. Kat says, appreciate it. Praying hands and heart. Well, I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate you all so much for being here, and I appreciate all the dialogue we've had today. Thank you, Akesia, and for Kat for hanging in there with me today. Let me know how I can support you. If you have any hard situations that you're dealing with as professionals, as leaders, let me know what they are. Feel free to come with me with the hard situations. That is my expertise. I deal with the challenging situations. And now probably some of you understand why, because this is something I've dealt with countless times over and over again. Thank you for the heart emojis, and I will see you all next week. I hope you have an amazing week, a very safe weekend, and I will see you all next Tuesday. Bye for now.